Debt to GDP ratios are off the charts, record territory for many of the world's countries. So people know in their gut, this is not sustainable. We're reckless, and this does not end well. We don't have control over what maybe our decision makers are making in the leadership positions, but we can make decisions at our individual household and family to try to compensate for that and to reduce risk. This is Dunagan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888-81-LIBERTY. And either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are watching and listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today's 5/19/21. Well, we've seen massive amounts of stimulus. We're starting to see the stock market perhaps breaking down. Cryptocurrencies taking a real dip. Bitcoin below its moving average, its 50-day moving average, really getting slammed today, down around the $35,000 range, actually hit 30,200, really right at its moving average. And all of this, what is an investor to do? Or if you're just concerned about protecting what little wealth you might have left, what do you do? And well, when I think of this, I think of prepping, because you're prepping even if you're not storing supplies and food and water and such. You still got to prep for what is often unknowable or unthinkable. And for that, I'd like to know what you're doing to prepare for what could be some very tough times. I'd like to get an email from you. Just send it to me at kl@kerrylutz.com. Right now, Reluctant Preppers Dunagan Kaiser is with us. Dunagan, you've been an expert prepper for quite some time, but we're talking here about financial prepping. What do? You got to be, if you were prepping using cryptos, you got to be thinking twice about it now, don't you?
I think a lot of us are trying to navigate in the unknown. We're always on the edge of the unknown. I mean, that's part of the human reality, is the future is unknown to us. So we're trying to figure things out as best we can. And cryptocurrencies are a completely new technique to consider as a tool to deal with our ability to transact in the future. And it's part of many unknowns that we deal with. But you have to second guess yourself in any case, your preparedness. Am I overemphasizing this aspect of preparedness? Have I considered all my bases on the other side? You can drive yourself crazy trying to be perfectionistic about that. But the real thing is to just say, what are the most important aspects of my future wealth and preservation of my survival for my family, my well-being, and am I got my bases covered? So for people who have gotten into cryptos, they've probably enjoyed, in some cases, some outsized gains. Hopefully they were averaging out to take some profits, and those who have been waiting for an opportunity to get in might be still considering that. It's often wrong to interpret short-term price action as a true sign of underlying fundamental value, because people tend to follow momentum in that way, and it can lead you just whipsawed all over the place. So I would say don't get overly shaken either on the upside or the downside by saying, oh, I'm fear of getting caught in or fear of missing out, but instead take a more sobered view of the bigger picture of what's real and how do I have things that are meaningful to help be assets to help me in times of trouble, and go from there.
Right. So, yeah, obviously a lot of this is unknowable, but some of it isn't. We have to look back in history a lot to other currencies that have collapsed, other empires that have collapsed, and things seem to be heating up. We're coming off this pandemic finally. but in much weaker condition with another $10 trillion that we know of worth of debt. So it seems like it's a bit more pressing now, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, we've talked about this, you and I, for years. In fact, I wanted to mention to people that we met at the Liberty Mastermind Symposia, both in Dallas and in Las Vegas, that you co-hosted years back, and that we got connected in that way. Also, that my son, Elijah K. Johnson, who you had on your channel years ago, and has got us connected as well. And now he's joined our platform. So he's helping to bring his message about fiscal responsibility and sound footing to people so that we can stay aware and prepared. But all of us this whole time have been looking at this sort of a doomsday clock of saying, look, this is not sustainable, what our country is doing and what all the countries of the world are doing. And anyone who has lived any amount of life in the real world and come up with hard knocks on a personal level, on a family or household level, whether it's within your own household or whether it's within acquaintances and friends or family members who've done like serious debting or done, just completely mismanaged their finances, has realized that makes serious consequences, real consequences on people's lives. We understand that at the individual level. We understand that at the household level. We've seen real examples of that. So we know in our gut that's reality. And yet the keepers of our currency nationally and of other countries are acting like they're spending like drunken sailors. In fact, there was that report that came out from the IMF just a couple months ago. I can send you the link again if it would be helpful to your viewers. But just the IMF head actually encouraging countries to, quote, spend as much as you can and then spend some more. So it's like, really? At a time when debt to GDP ratios are off the charts, record territory for many of the world's countries. So people know in their gut, this is not sustainable. We're reckless. And this does not end well. It's not going to end well for us in this generation. And it's certainly not going to end well for our children and our grandchildren. We just got back from visiting our children and grandchildren. It was a blessed time, but I can't help every moment I look in their eyes and think, what are we allowing to have happen? We don't have control over what maybe our decision makers are making and the leadership positions, but we can make decisions at our individual household and family to try to compensate for that and to reduce risk.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's quite a mess we're in. I don't see any way out of it. Do you see any way out of this mess?
It's not realistic, I don't think, to see that the people who are in power and making decisions about this are going to suddenly reverse course and go, oh, we just had an awakening. I guess runaway debt and inflation and debasing of the currency and propping up the house of cards that we've been doing for so long and having centralized decision rather than letting free markets manage allocation of capital and interest rates and everything else like that. No, I don't think it's human nature to think that anyone who has power is going to just relinquish it voluntarily. So, but that doesn't mean we can't take action at the individual level. So there's absolutely things that we can do individually to reduce our risk and to be better prepared for this changing environment. Now, we can't predict exactly what's going to happen next month or next year. I mean, who could have predicted by a script exactly what was going to happen over the past 18 months. Okay, I guess there were some movies like Pandemic or whatever it was called that came out that kind of showed us the playbook. But at any rate, what's coming in the next 18 months? Are we going to have increasing restoration of constitutional freedom? Are we going to have our rights to free speech and right of assembly and rights to bear arms and rights to sound money and all that restored? The odds are strongly against that. And is it much more likely that in the next few years, there's going to be some just major crackdown further on our freedoms and our ability to move from place to place, to buy and spend as we choose, to hold the fruits of our labor in our hand, probably. So what are we going to do about it? And that's what we have to do at an individual level.
It all has to take place on the individual level. Do you think these people know or care? If they do know, do they care what they're doing, what they're inflicting on the country and the world?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Doré copper mining is a premier, near-term, high-grade copper and gold redevelopment opportunity with tremendous exploration potential only 14 kilometers from the town of Chibougamau in mine-friendly Quebec. Doré Copper is debt-free and owns a 2,700 ton per day mill with an 8 million ton tailings facility ready to be used. There is already power to site and it is accessible by paved highway and rail. Doré Copper aims to produce a profitable hub-and-spoke operation of over 100,000 gold equivalent ounces per year or over 60 million pounds of copper equivalent by 2024. Because of the existing infrastructure and location, a low capex is anticipated to recommence production. Doré Copper trades under DCMC in Toronto and under DRCMF on the OTC. To learn more, go to dorecopper.com. That's dorecopper.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
I think a lot of us might not be fully aware of the impacts of a lot of our decisions and actions on others. I won't assume that they're unaware of their impacts, but it's possible that they've lost perspective and that that they don't relate with enough real people who are being impacted. But it's unfortunately, again, I think fallen human nature, it's all too easy for us to rationalize, oh, you see, I'll just take care of people and then they'll be loyal to me and then they'll be grateful and won't that be nice? And it's like, wait a minute, that's not your job. Your job is to be a servant to people so that they protect their freedom so that they can make choices in their lives. I just saw just 2 days ago, Janet Yellen came out with another quote saying, oh, we've got to support Biden's big infrastructure plans and including not just roads and bridges and things like that and internet and so on. No, we've got to have a new network of better and more childcare centers and other things like that. And you look back to the debate between Karl Marx and G.K. Chesterton. I say debate, but it's a philosophical divide. And the whole thing of the Marxist, socialist, communist agenda is you separate people from the sources, their traditional sources of things that they would rely on, whether that's faith, whether that's family, on and on. You find ways to make them dependent upon the state in every way. And that way they become completely wards of the state. And for us to, we just had tax day this Monday, didn't we? And my wife and I sat there at our accountant's office signing about half of our life of last year away, writing out check after check after check. And we, as those checks left our hands, we thought, this is like non-negotiable. We're being told you have to do this under threat of imprisonment, and look at what the substantially thing is. It's like half, almost half of our earnings, so almost half of our year last year, of our lives. So what do you call it if you just think about it? What do you call it when you are compelled to labor and you're compelled to not keep but to give away the fruits of that labor? And I don't know any word other than slavery that better describes that. So I used to think it was kind of inflammatory back when I went to your symposium and people were talking about debt slavery and tax slavery and all that. It's like, oh, well, that sounds kind of like a extravagant way of saying it, but I don't know. That sounds pretty realistic right now. So anything that we can do individually to reduce our individual tax burden and also to reduce our dependence on these people who are in positions of power that are going to make decisions that are not in our best interest, not in the best interest of our children and grandchildren, I think is the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, anything within reason, because you don't want to be stirring up a lot of trouble and having, to be considered a right-wing extremist, because we all know that right-wing extremists are potentially going to bring down the country. It's hard to find hope in this situation. I'll tell you one place where you can find some hope, although I don't know that it's long-term or otherwise or really sustainable. But here in Florida, we probably have the best governor in the country. He succumbed to lockdown mania, but only kept us locked down for 6 weeks and said, this is ridiculous. Ended the lockdowns. He just ended the mask mandate. Honestly, I felt like the end of the mask mandate, I felt like it was the end of prohibition. And, I wanted to just go out and party in the streets and just go to a bar and breathe all over people. The coolest thing, Dunagun, was the weekend that he did it. I went to Walmart, not the place I usually go to, but I like to buy bottled water there. They have the stuff that I like at a decent price. And and the front of the door, it said, masks are highly recommended. And that was like, recommended. Oh, well, you know what? I'm not going to buy your recommendation. And I went in there and half the place didn't have masks.
Right.
And then it's like the wall of the blue wall of maskdom started to crumble. Then public said, well, if you've been vaccinated, inoculated, whatever, you too cannot wear a mask. And then Target relented, and they've all relented. And now it's like, it's over. There's no more masks. And yes, I agree. If you've got comorbidities, particular autoimmune diseases, all that, you should wear a mask and you should limit your public contacts. But for the rest of us, hey, I had COVID. My immunity's probably pretty strong, still 6 months, not even 6 months out. And I won't go into the treatments I had that probably even boosted my immunities even more. But I've lost weight, gotten rid of my comorbidities almost totally. My point is that this was like worthy of celebration, and the state of Florida is booming. And all you hear about is DeSantis for president. Now, look, I think he's a great guy. I don't think as president, the things that a president to really be effective, to really save the country would have to do, I don't think are anybody's going to support Dunagun. Nobody can do it. So we have to do it for ourselves, like you said. But we are part of a community. We're part of cities, towns, and states, and the country. So it's hard if the country's going down for it to not bring you down, right? How do you stop that?
You mentioned a lot of things there. One thing that occurs to me is this. We talked about the limitations on our ability to take action on behalf of ourselves. Look at people who are voting with their feet. I know we've interviewed Lobo Tigre about that. He chose to go to Puerto Rico. We've interviewed others. Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin, we have on every Tuesday night for the weekly market update. He moved from Minnesota, where there's, he was a few miles from where the burning and the rioting and the looting were going on, down to Florida, where he's got, Second Amendments being upheld and so on. And so people are voting with their feet. We had our son, daughter-in-law, and her whole family left California, left the LA area, went to Arizona. Their realtor told them 90,000 people per year at that time. Now that was last fall. It's increasing now. Are leaving California for Arizona. So we're getting so many people voting with their feet and going where they're treated properly, rather than staying underneath. You mentioned the blue wall of masks coming down. It's very interesting to see these freedom-loving states, whether it's South Dakota, whether it's Texas, whether it's Florida, whether it's Arizona, where the governors are, it's like strike breakers, crossing the line and proving, in this case, they're not holding to this party line of saying, oh no, great danger, everybody stay locked down. They're saying, no, we're going to go on with our lives, and we're not going to destroy people's family businesses and their financial futures, their ability to work, to live, for children to form relationships. I mean, childhood moves very quickly, and for children to be masked up and distanced and unable to relate is going to have psychological and emotional impacts going forward that are completely unjustified. And anyway, you said, what can we do about it? One of the things people can do is decide that they are going to stand up for their legitimate freedoms, and if they need to, move to a place where that's not going to bring them afoul of the heavy hand of the law. My wife and I are looking to move from Ohio to Florida ourselves, so hopefully we'll be neighbors someday soon. And another thing you mentioned was about right-wing extremism. It's remarkable, the use of language, how effective the use of language at weaponizing our empathy against about each other, frankly, and dividing us has been from those who would like to be our keepers, our masters. And John Adams, economist and commentator, co-host of In the Interest of the People, which is together with his co-host Martin North down in Australia, has come up with a letter that he's written to the Australian Parliament, and he's going to be defending that with testimony there about that Thomas Jefferson and Jeffersonian politics that are embodied in philosophy, that are embodied in the Declaration of Independence and so on, and James Madison, would be in today's parlance called right-wing extremists, because they were talking about the intrinsic and inalienable rights of individuals to use it, and this, we've had also constitutional attorney Dr. Edwin Vieira on talking about our government seems to be abandoning constitutionality in all branches of the government. He went through the legislature, both at the federal and state level, in the Supreme Court and the executive branch, all not following the Constitution. He said, if that continues to happen and you've appealed, then there is a higher level of law that applies here. Constitutionally, they say, it's a law of the land. Well, when the government becomes destructive of those ends and has this trail of usurpations and so on, then there is a higher level of law, and it's embodied in the U.S. Declaration of Independence. So that's something that's people can look into, as John Adams' writings recently about Jeffersonian philosophy and the rights of free people. So worth looking into. Meanwhile, we got to network with each other, speak out freely as we are able to on the platforms that are available to us, and educate ourselves so that we can start making these choices that are truly for the best interest of our families and our children and grandchildren.
Hey, and I think we'll leave it at that. I couldn't agree with you more. And really, the whole theory of capitalism is every person acts in their own best interest and in consideration and morally of others, doing no harm, right? The golden rule. Mm-hmm. And as a result, with everybody following their own self-interest, we all profit accordingly. And that's gotten a bit haywired, and a lot of it's due to government intervention and lack of free markets. So hopefully we'll one day get back to that. It's not going to be an easy fight, but it's a fight worth having. We'd like to get your opinion. Any questions for Dunagan, please call me. Please email me, kl@kerrylutz.com. That's my personal address. Make sure you go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up there for your free newsletter. Dunagan, where do we find you? How do we connect with you on the web again?
Thank you very much. Yeah, people can go to libertyandfinance.com. That's all spelled out, all one word, libertyandfinance.com. And if you'd like, you can put your name and email address in there and subscribe to our free newsletter that comes out at least 3 times a week. It has all of our interviews and all of the resources that they give us for all of our guests, as well as weekly specials, since I do also sell gold, silver, and platinum for Miles Franklin precious metals. So you could see what our weekly specials are, and if you choose to. Otherwise, if you want to keep up just on our YouTube videos, go to youtube.com/libertyandfinance. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all of our releases.
All right. Excellent. Well, we appreciate you coming on. As always, thank you so much. Good luck. Give your family my best, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you, Kerry. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
This is Dunagan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. 31 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded. For physical delivery, vault storage, or precious metals IRAs, excellent prices, privacy, and confidentiality. Pay by check, money order, ACH, bank wire, or Bitcoin. Satisfaction guaranteed. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888-81-LIBERTY. And either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs.